Welcome to the Art of Connection with your host, Deborah Singer. Each episode's interview highlights resources for manifesting interactions for a great life together. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, dsingercounseling.com. Now here's the host of The Art of Connection, Deborah Singer.
Hello, video podcast viewers. I am so honored to welcome my lovely guest and colleague, Jude Treder-Wolff, LCSW, CGP, Certified Group Professional. Is that what it is? CGP?
Psychotherapist.
Certified Group. Oh, got it. And creative art. She is a creative art therapist, social worker, storyteller, story coach, improviser, performer. I know her as a wonderful writer on creative arts therapy and mental health, a beautiful voice singer, songwriter, comedy songwriter, which she is amazing, and educator. And I've taken many of her classes and have enjoyed her improvisation classes. So thank you, Jude, for being here today. We're going to talk about what elements of improvisation and games make them naturally therapeutic and gives them a sense of connection to people in the group, and ideas for connecting with people outside of the improvisation experience.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on this show. I'm so excited that you're doing this. The art of connection, what could be more important in a world that needs that more than ever? And I know that the work that you do is very much about couples and families coming together, communicating more effectively, more intimately, more powerfully. And of course, I don't work with couples as much, well, and not anymore, because I'm not doing private practice like I used to, but I do use improvisation and all of its applications with people really from all fields. Some people come for personal growth, some people come for professional development, and both, really. But you know, from the times that we've played together or the workshops that we've done together, how immediate and how powerful an improv connection can be because of the way the games and the exercises are structured. So you want me to go into a little bit about that right off the bat?
Talk more about how that how you create that as the leader of an improvisation class, and how you create that great experience, the great feeling that I've always gotten when I'm in the middle in that class. And I feel it's just the best feeling when you're in a class and with these people, whether they're strangers or people you always, if you're in a class for more than one time, you start to really feel a connection with them very quickly with the help of the improvisation games and playing with others. So I'm just wondering, what are some of your favorite games and that encourage that deep connection, and how does that work? How do you create that, and how does that work?
So I'll give you an idea about the how it works part, and then maybe we could talk about some games that you might have actually done in groups that we've been in together. Yeah. But the how it works is, I think, important for people who have never experienced improvisation at all. So they've seen like Whose Line Is It Anyway, perhaps on television, and you see very, very funny people doing wildly funny things. And that is improvisation. They're doing short form games, that have a structure that the players all agree to play within. Let's say, for example, it could be a structure like, we're going to have a conversation that consists entirely of questions, or we're going to have a conversation in which each new sentence starts with the next letter of the alphabet. That's a simple structure. Those structures, there's even more basic ones, which I'm going to share in a second, but that when we get together and we're with a group of people, there's always an element of insecurity and anxiety that we just feel about how exposed we're going to be, how much people will notice us, how much we want to be noticed. And all of those defenses are just natural parts of being with people that we don't know well, or in an improv setting where people are, well, we all know we're going to be kind of on the spot in some form.
Right.
And so when we watch Whose Line Is It Anyway and go, I'm not funny, I'm not that interesting. Most people will say, I can't do that. Well, in the improvisation workshops and classes, especially applied improvisation, where we're using it to apply to real life scenarios, like for therapy, we're not doing what you see on Whose Line Is It Anyway at the start. We're doing very simple exercises that are deceptively sophisticated. And what they are, they're designed in a way so that improvisers, when you watch improv on a stage, come together into an empty space with no script, no props, no director. They get an idea from the audience, so they don't know so there's a lot of uncertainty. So all of those elements are part of what makes improv special and unique and hard to do. And yet they're able to create something together because we make agreements about how to communicate. We follow certain structures that you learn, you internalize them. And then when we go into the creative space, what improvisers have, and this relates very much to what you do as a couples therapist, what improvisers have is each other and imagination and a set of agreements about how we will treat each other. And when improvisation is really working, whether it's in a group or on stage, it's working because of the way people treat each other. And so when I design a group, it could be something as simple as we'll start with an exercise that might sound almost silly, but I'll just give you an example of a powerful application of how I've used it with a professional group. It's a game where you stand in a circle and simply look at the person to your right, make eye contact, and then you clap at the exact same moment. And then that person turns to the person on their right, and then you clap your hands at the exact same moment. It's harder than it sounds to actually clap your hands at the exact same moment, to synchronize the clapping. And each person goes around and clap and to the next person in the circle. Then we mix it up a little bit. After we get a rhythm going and the brain starts to adapt to that, but we can clap at the exact same moment, we're looking at each other, the group begins to connect without speaking, without talking, without giving our backgrounds, without talking about our problems. There's a synchrony that happens in the brain that's very comforting. Like, I feel okay with you guys. Well, then we complicate things just a little bit. Then we add, I can pass we call it pass the clap. We got to find a new name for this game. But we pass the action, I'll say.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I know. We pass the action. But let's say I pass it to you and you decide to pass it back to me. Instead of keeping going around the circle, what you would do is, instead of pivoting to the next person, you would not pivot and you would pass it back to me, which means I then pivot and turn it around. So we have to really watch each other closely for the pivot. Am I pivoting or am I not pivoting? Is that person going to pivot, or is it my turn to pivot? So that is a simple nonverbal exercise that demonstrates close attention, responding, taking a cue from someone else. It can be very subtle that somebody is going to pivot and pass it, or it can be very subtle that the person is not pivoting and we need to notice it. The second level is things will always fall apart in the group. Like the first one, we'll get it. Everybody will get it. The second one, things will fall apart. So here's another wonderful gift that improv gives us. When it falls apart, we just start again. We just try again. And the more times we try, the more fun it is, the easier we all feel with each other. And the more we realize that resilience and willingness to try again is so much more important for relationships, for learning, than getting it right. Like, oh, we had the perfect circle. No one dropped the energy. Then we add a third level, which is you can call someone's name and pass it across the circle. And you never know if your name is going to be called. So that all of it adds this element of uncertainty and uncertainty tolerance is one of the most important psychological gifts we can give each other through experiences in a time, especially in life now, where the pace of change keeps accelerating. And we work in the field of change. We want people to be able to embrace change, and change is stressful. And we tend to seize up and retreat and feel defensive around change. Being able to change, be resilient, pivot, not pivot, absorb, and not feel alone. All those gifts are baked into a simple exercise like this. So a quick story about doing this exercise. I was working with a bunch of researchers at a big cancer facility in New York City.
Wow.
Very, very, very cerebral people, very smart people. And it was the first time that this particular group of professionals in healthcare had been in the same room after the pandemic. So they hadn't seen each other physically for a year and a half. And now they were all in the same room, and they hired me to come in and do some exercises and then conversations that would help people to connect very quickly. That some of them had been hired during the pandemic, had never actually seen each other. So they worked closely together, but never actually were in the same room. So this is the first exercise that we did. And these very, very smart people absorbed very quickly the depth of it, the usefulness of it, looking at each other, calling each other by name, getting on the same page, accepting failure, if you will. I don't even call it a failure, but just that things fall apart and then someone else just picks it up. And they were able to relate that to the massive amount of pivoting that everybody had to do during the pandemic, that they continued to have to do, but that they then actually were connecting with each other. So that's a quick example of a nonverbal exercise that's very low key and yet has a remarkable power over a group. And it has those elements of improv, of connecting, noticing, being aware, responding, that make it possible to create something in real time together without a script, without a director, without any props, and to rely on each other.
Very nice. I bet that works really nicely with them because of how they need to be connected to each other and the fun of it versus the seriousness and responsibility that they have in the research, and whatever it is that they're doing is so important. And to be able to play and also connect with each other, and the word attunement in improv comes to mind because of what I do in the work in the Gottman research, how important it is to attune to a partner. And I would extrapolate that to anybody that you want to have a connection with, to be really, I have to pay really close attention to you if I'm passing the action to you. And I have to also then kind of be attuned to the whole group. Paying attention to paying close attention. And I think that that's really a way to learn how to be more attentive to others, is that playing around with that connection. And that sounds like a lot of fun. That I wonder what kind of impact that has on their research. Like, I would be curious to research the researchers about if it makes a difference in what goes on with thinking outside of the box, for instance, or being more interested in what other people's ideas might be in their work together.
Well, I can't speak to that particular group because that was, I worked with those folks and then I leave and I'm not doing research. However, there is research published in Thinking Skills and Creativity Journal. That's one that I know for sure has several studies. There are studies published in journals about uncertainty tolerance, diverse thinking, like that, how improv, that is well researched and documented, that doing these kind of exercises where there's an element of the unexpected, because the word improv or improvisation comes from a Latin word that means the unfamiliar or the unexpected. So anytime that we're gearing ourselves up to manage the unexpected, and really prepare for it. So we're going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but also know that it increases the sense of it's okay. It's okay to be with each other and not necessarily win at every one of these efforts, but that it increases the togetherness. But there's a lot of good research. In fact, I have a Google Doc with lots of research studies that I'm saving up, and I write about this on Medium all the time. Every time I find a really juicy study, journals about cognition, about cognitive agility and mental agility, emotional intelligence, about how improv is such a powerful tool because it has simple games, but they're deceptively powerful and sophisticated because of the way they engage our emotions, our body, and our cognitive thinking all at the same time. And so I love that word that you use, attunement.
Yeah.
That nothing really happens in therapy without attunement. Nothing really happens in learning without attunement when you think about it. And that's what you're talking about with the work that you do with couples. And attunement is one of the four, and I'm not going to be able to name the other four. I shouldn't have even mentioned them. But attunement, awareness, attention, and a fourth
Attention.
one.
Is it attachment? No.
No, not with improv. No.
Okay. Oh,
No,
okay.
attunement, attention, and awareness. But attunement is the first, because
Right.
what else, if we're not attuned, it isn't
Right.
You know, that is it's the connection to the other players, the connection
Right.
to the and a willingness to support each other so that we can create together. And it doesn't really mean in improv that we agreement might be the fourth A, but attunement is first.
Right.
Because that's, you know, you like that's one person or connecting to another person in beyond the verbal, you know, in a very energetic way, in a way that is beyond just what we say. It's really, I am present with you. Right. And I know that you train people to do that. And I think the reason it feels so good, and there's the studies about neuroplasticity as well, that it ignites the reward chemistry of the brain to do something that is both challenging, a little bit difficult, but also fun at the same time, and has a degree of social support. So improv has all those three things. It's definitely a little uncomfortable, but it's not so uncomfortable that you shut down if it's properly designed. And I personally work very hard on creating experiences that have that element of discomfort, but not so much and you know what I mean? It's like, it's a little bit like, oh, can I even do this?
Right.
I just want to give you an example, but at the same time, so that puts the brain in the learning mode, but at the same time, we're getting such epic support from each other that when it goes well, or even if it doesn't go well, and it's hilarious. So it's either funny or it's interesting. It's always fascinating. It's highly engaging. So we're going to learn more from that kind of play. We're going to get better at recovery when things don't go well. And so in the medical world, which I do some work with the medical world, lots of work in mental health, people will say, but do you want a surgeon or even a psychotherapist who's so like, oh, anything goes, you know, just improv? No, you want people who are good and precise and understand rules and understand protocols. And I say 100%. I 100% want a doctor, a surgeon, or somebody who understands protocols on how things go and they should go. You want that person who's very well trained. At the same time, what I want that person to be able to do is adapt when things don't go as planned.
Right.
You want the precise surgeon who's brilliant at what they do, who can recover when things don't go as planned, who can adapt when things don't go as planned. Same with a teacher, same with a therapist. So that's what all this work is about. Even if somebody says, I don't ever want to get on stage and do improv, and I say, neither did I. I ended up loving it and ended up on a team for a while. But I really just love doing it because of what you said about the juice, like the joy.
Yes, that's what I love the best chemistry.
About it. Yes, of the reward, which is, and that again, the Arts and Psychotherapy Journal, Thinking Skills and Creativity, Cognition, other journals have cited what's happening in the brain is a natural mood boosting activity. So
Yeah.
we're learning, we're connecting with each other, and we're boosting our mood through creativity, training ourselves to manage the uncertainty, training ourselves to be able to think under pressure in a very different way, be able to come up with a novel approach to something because we did it in this play setting. Now in real life scenarios, people will tell me, I never speak up at my neighborhood
Right.
association. I'm so intimidated by the bossy people who run it. And I just started talking about the thing I wanted to happen. And I realized before improv, I couldn't do that. But I don't think about it. I just have, this person has
Very
tapped
cool.
into something in themselves that they have greater confidence. And all those things just play a role in a healthier life, a life that's more connected, a life where we build community with each other. And if we know, there's also like so anyway, there's all these natural therapeutic benefits. I wanted to share one more quick game with you.
Yeah, definitely want to hear the games. Yes.
Yeah, I loved this game. Now this game I used repeatedly in a program that I was doing groups for a wellness in the workplace program. The employees were not necessarily thrilled about being in this program. They got a discount on their health insurance, what they had to pay in for the health insurance by attending these classes, and they were just really filling time. There wasn't much enthusiasm for being in the room. And my partners and I that were offering these classes thought this is an opportunity, even if people don't want to be here, to explore why change, especially behavior change when it comes to health, whether it could be mental health or physical health, like change is challenging. And why is change so challenging? And that we actually just closed the door on it, which is why a lot of these people had to be in these healthcare classes, because they were, they needed to change their diet, lower their cholesterol, stop smoking, things that they were doing that they could actually take control over, but they actually weren't. And we weren't there to say what you should do or not do. We know what would work better, but that's not my call. But what we would do is things like, here, a quick example. One was a game called This Is Not an Umbrella. That was the name of the game.
Right.
And I would bring in a large umbrella, not the short kind, but the really long one.
Oh, okay. So physical prop.
A physical umbrella. In this case, we did have a prop. Yeah.
Okay. So not.
And I would bring it in. Yeah, and say, this looks like an umbrella, but it's not an umbrella. It is a golf club. And then do the action that you would do if you were pretending this was a golf club. And then I would hand it to someone and say, it looks like an umbrella. This is not an umbrella. What else could it be? And then somebody holds it and says, it's a karaoke mic. And then they hand it to somebody else and they say, it's a bouquet of roses. And people would be here. It is like 7 a.m. These are healthcare providers that have to go and do a tough job. Sometimes they were healthcare providers that had just worked an 11 to 7 shift, and they came to the class after because they had to come whenever was convenient for them. And we would be laughing every time somebody would come up with a new use for this umbrella. We would laugh. There's something about the surprise of what is this person going to do? And they would surprise themselves and say, I took it and then I thought, oh, it could be a baseball bat. It could be a marching band baton. It could be a fishing pole. And that just igniting that much creativity, people would say, I felt so much better today. They would tell me later on when I would see them around the campus of this. It was a big healthcare organization. So then we would talk about that change is simply seeing something in a new way. We don't have to think about change as this massive sweeping thing. I mean, sometimes life pushes us into massive change that we didn't ask for, and we're still going to have to see things in a new way, sometimes too much at once. But if we have the option to see the possibility of change just inch by inch by inch, it's just seeing things in a new way, then it's not as scary, and we're more likely to explore what will help. That was just a really great opportunity to see how much creativity people have within them that they don't really know they have in a very simple way. It also made the group feel good. They felt good about each other. And people would, on the evaluations, they would say, sometimes I don't know the other people. This is a very big organization. Sometimes I don't see I don't know people well, but now when I see them, we laugh and we make each other smile.
Oh,
So think about like,
oh,
I think that
yeah.
improv has this power to make people feel better in the
Yes.
moment, but then feel connected to each other in a way that then can spread some of that joy in a workplace and in a world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think some of that change that feels hard, if you're able to find some joy anywhere
Yeah.
in any place, kind of helps you helps that change that feels so hard and arduous a little easier to, take a break from it, to feel, to have a balance in your life and have it not all be all about, oh, I got to do this, I got to lose weight, I got to change my diet, whatever it is that makes life feel, just the balance of having fun makes such a big difference. I know for me, it totally does. If I have fun, it just bleeds into the rest of my anything that comes up in the rest of my week. It just changes, almost changes your DNA when you're, having fun with other people and feeling connected and enjoying yourself in that way, especially with improv. That's why I love doing it. So you were talking about change, like how, like these days, the only person other than my 92-year-old mother, anybody else that I know is, spinning and racing with so much going on, work, activities. It just seems like the world is spinning faster than ever. And I'm trying to think, has it always been this fast? Have things been changing all the time this fast? And it just seems like I just don't know anybody really that isn't just so busy and so trying to keep up. And I'm wondering what your new show that you have called Faster, tell me more about that. Does it have something to do with that, or talk more about, the comedy about keeping up with the speed of change? I'd like to hear about it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting question because life was very hard before technology. It was a lot of work to keep a fire going and build your house and do all these things manually and all the things we had to do before technology. So people were pretty busy. They were very busy. What didn't change in those many hundreds and hundreds of years or thousands of years that human beings existed was the pace of technology's evolution. Right. So we could get like Blockbuster. We're old enough to remember when Blockbuster Video was a big deal and going and getting your movie on, for the weekend. And it was a piece of plastic. And now those things are obsolete. And phones keep being replaced and by another model. And every single time there's a new evolution of technology, because technology, one person, some guy, Silicon Valley guy that I read, Clayton Christensen, I think his name was, said technology is evolving at something like 10 million times the natural speed of evolution. Evolution doesn't really happen in a lifetime. It doesn't happen in 20 years, but we have lived through in our lifetime, landing on the moon for the first time, for example, and then repeated trips to this International Space Station, and then all these. So all of that technology affects healthcare. It affects societies. It affects travel. And many things being automated, for example, make people feel like they can do things, but they don't understand how they work, including myself. Like I don't understand a lot of things that I use, including even what we're doing right now.
Exactly. I'm always finding myself wanting to get some teenager to come help me, like sit by my side, because I think they know a little bit, because it just comes more naturally to them since they're born into it, instead of having to just constantly feel like you have to catch up, someone that didn't come from all that.
Well, and think about, there used to be more than a common history that there isn't anymore, because how we were raised is so very different from what the world that they're in. But it wasn't so very different for us from our parents. It wasn't so very different, so impossibly different. Like they don't know what a dial tone is. And that was a new thing when we were young. And the fact that things are happening so quickly means a greater divide between generations, less understanding between, more barriers. There's a lot more to adapt to. And so, yes, we are very busy not chopping wood and carrying water for basic survival anymore. But emotionally and psychologically, we can see there's just as much war, there's just as much unrest, racism, anti-Semitism. There are so many social problems that never have gone away, and in fact, they're inflated in some ways. And there are, because of the rapid communication that people can find each other.
Okay.
And it is, so a new problem has been created, partly the mental health issue of just the pace of change. Even with the pandemic, information went out very rapidly, and some of it wasn't true, right? A lot of it wasn't true, but it gets amplified. And it creates silos, and people don't understand each other. In generations have trouble understanding each other. And I think that not understanding how things work because they're so different makes people feel threatened. And that's the piece where I hope that something like improvisation, which brings people together very quickly, that teaches us to think in a different way, where we don't need to be, not, it's very unconventional, but it works, can help to close that gap.
Yeah. So, well, I still want to hear about your show, your faster show, but I'm saying, but that made me think like, and things, I think about these things too in my work with the Gottman information, but also with improv. I think that it needs to start in daycare, preschool, elementary school, that there needs to be, people, well, with all of the technology and the speed of things, that it's very easy not to not connect, or to all of a sudden not even know how to connect.
Right.
Because we're also, all of us are so connected to our devices that, making sure that we have that ability to, as human beings and pack animals that need each other, what do we, how do we do that? And then I think the improv and communication needs to be emphasized, because the technology, I don't think that it's gonna, as human beings, we're not going to be able to plug ourselves and download something on the hard drive. Although sometimes I wish I could, just like, let's put it in there. But yeah.
But you raise a good point that, okay, so with that, like, there's so many benefits to social media that I can't be honest and say I don't love a lot of things about it, because I have met people from around the world and then met them in person, and that I never, would have had access to without. And I don't know if I would have made it through the pandemic without online improv and online. But the in-person connection can't be replaced with anything, really. And so I'm grateful that you're mentioning my show. And also I want to mention storytelling is another way that people can bridge barriers of communication and understanding by learning a powerful and creative way to deliver a story, to touch on your own experiences, to understand them in a deeper way, and get the strength and the skills to share that with other people. That's a community building thing that I think is a wonderful, those live storytelling shows. Online ones are great, but live ones, there's really nothing like it. So I wrote this new solo show called Faster, which is a combination. It's mostly storytelling, but it also has an improv element in the room to emphasize, look, we're people in the room together. We're never going to be together again. This is a unique moment, and how improv can kind of make something special out of that experience of being together in a room. But I focus on this issue of change and the pace of change. And I use my husband and I as a model. We are complete opposites when it comes to approaching change. I am a let's try the road not taken person. Right. He's there's a reason people don't take that road. Do your research. I'm like, take the leap. He's like, no leaping, only looking. And we're going to look for a long time.
Very similar to my husband. The difference between my husband and me, very similar. Yeah, it's very cute.
So I have a lot of stories about a couple, being a couple that have this lurching kind of approach to change, and we've worked it out. And there are those tensions, but so there's the comedy is us, but it's also layered over the larger thing of people and how we can find a middle ground to deal with the pace of change And
Oh.
we know there's always going to be kind of an emotional hangover from change that happens quickly. And I know that it happens for my husband because he needs a certain pace of change. And if it happens too fast, he's going to pay a price. And I know that about him. I know that now. And I also know that me moving too fast can sometimes have a price as well.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a lot of comedy. It's comedy,
Yeah.
but there's truth in comedy. So that's the show.
Oh,
And it happens
nice.
December 10th, and then next year I'm going to be doing it in the New York Fringe Festival at the
great.
14th Street Y, which I can't wait.
Oh, good. I really would. I've loved all of your shows so much, and I hope to get to see it. And then your other shows are the Mostly True Things, which happened recently. So hopefully have that again soon, which I've gotten to be a part of, which I've loved being one of your storytellers. It's such an honor.
Thank you. You're wonderful. That's a Long Island based, right? That's a Long Island monthly event. Sometimes we do it in New York City, and that's fun. And I've also been booked around the country. Sometimes an organization will hire me to come in and do that show with their staff, which is really fun. But that show is a little bit of improv too, but it's really true stories that has a game embedded in the show. So thank you for mentioning Mostly True Things. I've been doing it since 2014, and it's a community building event that I feel is really good about. So thank you.
Yeah. You were talking about your husband. A year ago, my son orchestrated a musical improv class for my birthday.
Oh my gosh.
And my husband, any other time, no way, I'm not going to do it. I'll just sit and watch. And I was just blown away that he participated in the games.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And that was so delightful. And the people that were there and had, my son and I were the only ones really that had any experience with improv. And everybody there had so much fun with the games and the music. And, but that was really a great change in him that, since we started, I think 16 years ago and to now, how he's, now he was actually willing to participate. And it was really, he had fun. He was great.
What a great birthday. Everybody taking creative risks for you. That's awesome.
It was amazing. Yeah. And then knowing how my daughter, who was also wonderful, said, I'm never doing that again. So I guess, I don't understand, she was great at it, but I think it's, it really made me feel closer to everybody there. And it was the best birthday present ever.
Yay, improv. Well, I think we're probably got to. I want to thank you so much, Deborah, for having me on this podcast and stream. It's a pleasure to see you and talk to you anytime. I loved when you were on my show. I loved when you came to my workshops, and that we have this great improv and storytelling connection.
I love it too. And I want to make sure I mention everything that there is to mention about you, and also the classes. I don't think we mentioned that. Is that online, that Monday
all on
night
my
class?
website, which it's all, anybody's interested. It's all lifestage.me. It's all there. Check it all out.
Okay. But is that, can anybody take that Monday night class, or you got to sign up, or you have a certain?
Well, you have to sign up, but anyone can take it. Sure.
Oh, great. Yeah. One of these days I'd love to drop in. So it looks like fun. I know some of the people that are there are great. Okay. Well, I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you,
Thanks
Jude.
everyone for listening.
Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you for everybody for listening.
You've been tuning into The Art of Connection with your host, Deborah Singer. You can find more episodes on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, dsingercounseling.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.